Baller Nation, as well as HBCU Nation. This is Kelvin Rozier.
And this is Marcus Green.
Surprise, surprise. We are having a show today. Bryan Fulford is out on assignment. He's been working really hard all day today as part of the SWAC Media Day coverage. And he's going in some after hours. So we miss you, Bryan, but the show must go on. And of course, you saw how punctual we started today's show. That's because we got that Ace Coon Boom, my producer. No shade, Bryan, but my producer, Mel in the house. Thank you, Mel, for stepping in and stepping up to produce the show today. We appreciate you.
Very much so.
And so with that, we've got a guest coming on early today. Friend of the show, been on many times before, but NFL Network
extraordinaire Steve Wyche.
Yes,
is coming on and sharing us his thoughts. Of course, we got to rib him a little bit about the OBC, see what his thoughts are on that game, but also hopefully talk to him a little bit about not only how he's helped with the proliferation of HBCU athletes getting exposure, but hopefully he can enlighten us a little bit on some of the NFL talent or retired NFL talent coming back and coaching at HBCUs, and maybe shed a little bit of light on what we're seeing on all the professional aspects that are now encroaching upon the college game.
Absolutely. At the bottom of the hour and going into hour two, of course, we're going to talk about SWAC Media Days. There's quite a bit of information that came out from SWAC Media Days. We got the SWAC Network TV streaming that we're going to talk about. We have a predicted order of finish from the East and the West, and something interesting about that, again, Bethune-Cookman, I think, had the first place votes, and Valley, I think, had the first place votes. So someone around there still, I don't know if they're taking their duties seriously, but we'll talk about that. And we got some recruiting updates. We've added some players, and then the Swingman Classic. Me and Bryan was able to attend that in the ATL on Friday. Got a chance to talk with Coach Shoop and watch our Rattlers do their thing, man. They did a great job. And we have a Major League Baseball draft, 13th round. We'll talk about Mr. Popple also at the bottom of the hour and the top of the second hour. But with that, let's get our reads out the way real quick. We want to thank everybody for coming in and watching the show. We want you to remember to hit the like button. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can also download the Jericho Broadcasting app. Search MyJBN, BCSN. And our show appears on the BCSN Pod Zone, which is everywhere you download and listen to podcasts. Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, podcasts, and more. And there's also, you can also donate to the show. There should be a donation QR code sitting up there on the left side of the screen. And then there's also the Cash App. You know, as Bryan always say, we can always use a little help with a little coffee. So we appreciate you and thank you for tuning in. We're going to jump right into shout outs, I guess, real quick, Marcus.
Yes, sir. And first up, Melissa Wilson, straight out. Hi, Miss Melissa. And next up, of course, we have one of our hosts, Kelvin Rozier, jumping in, saying hello to everybody. Marvin Allen, welcome back. Kevin Bull Butler.
What's up, Bull?
Ashton Harris.
What's up, Ash?
Mr. Harris. Miss Meredith joining us, jumping in just before the 8 o'clock hour.
JBN subscriber.
And Jimmy Mack. I see Melissa got you this week, but I know Jimmy Mack's going to come back strong next week. But J Mack's in the building. B Starks. What's up, B Starks?
JBN subscriber. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
B Starks.
Got Tony Mathers.
Daha.
And Chuck Hunt from somewhere, some one of those states.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, Monroe, Louisiana. What's up, Chuck? I saw Chuck jump on one of the other podcasts and giving in some wise insights.
It was being unfaithful, huh?
I see you, Chuck.
And Tamara T jumping in. Hey, Miss Tamara.
Hey, what's up, Tamara T?
And Lil Baby jumping in.
What's up, big little baby? How's it going?
All right.
So, we thank everybody again for jumping in and watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
While we got what, a few minutes?
Yeah, we do. Before our guest jumps in, and I'm just checking out, looking out for him. But overall, what are your thoughts so far? I know we're going to go in detail a little bit later. Oh, there's Mr. Austin, James Austin jumping in. But overall, did you get a chance to look at any of the coverage today from SWAC Media Day?
I did. I watched the BCSN game time, and I watched a few of those interviews. And I tell you who stood out to me that I was very interested. The Mississippi Valley State contingent, right? The AD came on, the new AD, and also Coach Buckley. And I would tell you they talk that talk. Now they ain't scared.
They did. I saw that clip. I was like, oh, getting a little, you're filling out their britches a little bit. Like,
well, hey, you need to be confident. You go into a program where you're trying to change the culture, which is what they talked about. And you part of that is they backed up some of the confidence with the work that's required in order to change the culture and become a consistent winner. And they have a plan, and I'm interested to see in year one what kind of progress that they have. But I like it, man. I loved it. It
only makes the conference more competitive.
Absolutely, man. The more competitive the conference, the better chance we have multiple chances in terms of postseason play. For those who ain't playing in the Celebration Bowl, and there's opportunities to get an at large with the NCAA FCS playoffs.
And I see James Austin was asking that question: will a number 2 finish get us a playoff bid? I mean, you don't know. I mean, you'd like to think so. And at least from watching some of Coach Colsey's interviews and some of the hosts, they're remarking about the strength of our schedule in terms of not only the SWAC gamut, but our out-of-conference schedule with an FCS team, with coming from the MEAC. Then we have an FBS team and FAU. We're actually 2 MEAC opponents. So 2 MEAC opponents, 2 FCS teams, 1 FBS group of 5, and then Albany State. And I believe, if I saw that correctly, I think they were voted the top team in the SIAC at the SIAC Media Days.
They are the favorites to win the SIAC this year. I think they're returning like 19 players. I saw Quinn during the summer at an event, and I told him to take it easy for us. He can try to make it look good, but but he got to take one for the team. So I don't think he was listening to me, but
so we got a pretty good gamut. Now, I don't recall Albany's record last year. I think they were in it. I thought they were in it up until maybe the last few weeks, but maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm thinking they were like 6-6. They were right there, in the middle of things. But and to answer James Austin's question, how a MEAC or a SWAC team gets into the conference, to the NCAA as an at-large, it's probably going to center around who you lose to. And you probably, with 12-game season, 8-3 is questionable. 9-2, you probably in, right? So for FAMU, what it would look like, you beat Central, you beat Howard out of conference. Central or Howard compete for the SWAC, on the MEAC championship. You play a respectable game against FAU, and then you lose to whoever win the East. If those are your only 2 losses and you beat other teams, chances are you you can get at large.
Mhm.
But 3 losses is tough.
Yeah, and also there's things that are out of our control in terms of, well, 2 things out of our control. That would be the win-loss record of our opponents. You know, if you specifically look at the 2 teams from the MEAC, but then also we don't know what the other FCS conferences are going to look like. So if a conference has a down year, or if they have a really good year, they've already shown a proclivity towards having multiple bids for different conferences. So depending on how strong other conferences are, may open up opportunities for us or not. So
Well,
that's something we can't really control.
and that's why it's important that all MEAC teams, not just FAMU, they win the out of conference games.
Mm-hmm. Agree. So we have to put a strong showing in, and it's like some of the teams are competing regionally. I haven't looked at the whole entire SWAC out of conference schedule, but I know typically the Texas and Louisiana schools might schedule regional FCS teams to play on some frequency. So we have to look at that as well, and I hope that they perform well early in the season, and maybe not slack off, but that we'll be able to get the better of them when we play them, but that they're peaking early. And I'll say I mean our SWAC brethren against out of conference opponents, and then we come in and just take care of business.
Okay, Marcus, I guess while we're still waiting on our guests, let's talk about the SWAC Media Day today.
Okay.
What were your thoughts? Did you get a chance to see any of it?
I got to sneak in a little bit. I guess I mainly focused on the segments where Coach Colsey was participating. So I did not get a chance to see the ESPN clip, but I did see the Black College Sports Network off and on. But I know that Coach Colsey and Devion Westmoreland and Ashton Grable were the last segment of the day for BCSN. I did see the segment, I guess, early in the morning. I saw it at lunchtime, but I saw where Coach Colsey was having the interview on the SWAC Digital Network, where they had the coaches one-on-one with Tolly Carr and the other gentleman. And I think there was another segment. I can't remember, but I did catch a couple of them. So overall, it seemed like a good production. I do want to catch the ESPN version of SWAC Media Day, so I did not get a chance to see that. But overall, it seemed like there were a lot of interest, a lot of folks that came out to see it. And really interesting to see, the different teams and some of the renewed energy that they had, either with new coaching staffs or new coaches that kind of bring that energy to everyone starting off 0-0.
Yeah, I thought it was also really big that almost all the Black podcasts, HBCU coverage, everybody seemed to be there and involved and very professional. So it was a lot of media coverage, a lot of content coming out, and I think that's big, man. We got to tell our own stories.
Of course, and it seemed like we have plenty of outlets, from those that are team specific or school specific to those that cover the HBCU landscape, like some of the major outlets like BCSN, HBCU Game Day, and other folks coming through and making their presence felt and making contributions and talking to the coaches and helping to market our story.
What did you think about the announcement by the SWAC?
Oh my gosh. That was a bombshell. It looks like our guest has jumped in.
Okay.
But that was, I would say, maybe not a bombshell, but it was very good to see. Very good to see.
Yeah, SWAC TV. We'll get into it later, but I think it's really important. You kind of control some of your content, some of your media, and from all accounts, man, it's put together really well. I know they've privatized it or outsourced, the production of it, and have someone overseeing it who has experience in that field. So this probably be a good thing to kind of talk to our guest about too.
Yes, most certainly. Yeah. Expertise in that area. And without further ado, we would like to introduce Mr. Steve Wyche, friend of the program. Welcome back, Mr. Wyche.
Okay, you guys are being real kind out the gate. I know you're setting me up. I know I got some of this coming at me. How's everything going? I'm so glad to be back, man. Hope y'all are doing well.
Yes,
Thank
everything is going well. Thank you once again for
Yeah.
being able to get us in on your schedule. So I guess without further ado, so we tell us what you've been up to, and then we'll get in a little bit so we can throw some of those fangs at you. But tell us how things have been going with you.
No, things are well, man. I mean, right now, of course, NFL training camps, teams are starting to report. So, we're getting ready to start our training camp coverage next week, at the back end of next week, with Back Together Weekend, where we'll be at all 32 teams over 2 days. When I say we, NFL Network. And then we'll be inside training camp, where we'll be at all kinds of different camps in that realm. And, one thing I personally will do too, since we're talking about HBCU sports and athletics, is try to highlight some of the players from HBCUs who are on camps trying to make rosters, guys who've been established for a while. I mean, that's a personal and something personally for me. It's something I like to do, and to tell those stories you guys were just talking about. The black media telling its own stories. I've got a platform on a National Football League where I can help amplify that as well. So been doing that, been doing some studio work, and also, spending time with the grandkids. Got a new granddaughter and a 2-year-old grandson. So hanging out and spending time with them as well.
Congratulations. I guess just to start off, just starting off with the black college football.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the timing of it in terms of the end of training camp versus the beginning of college football, but there's a game in Miami between our alma maters that's coming up.
Yeah.
What have you been hearing from the Howard camp as it relates to the team?
It's been pretty workmanlike. They had a lot of guys last year who left who were frontline players, guys like Kenny Gallup, players like that. But, they've taken some hits the past 2 years, but they feel pretty confident in terms of how they're going to fare in the MEAC, as they should. I mean, they've got some players. Coach Scott has done a really good job of acquiring talent with some of the restrictions that they have at Howard. Howard can't take any transfers unless they're grad transfers. And so they've got to sell recruiting and keeping guys there as long as possible. And like with any black college, they've also got to be honest with themselves and say, hey, if you come here and do good enough and you're getting recruited to go to play at Oklahoma or whatever, we'll help get you there as well. So, I mean, it's a reality check, but it is what it is. Hopefully Howard, and just like FAMU, the university and the history and that degree helps sell the football program to attract a special type of talent and a special type of person.
If I could jump in, Kelvin, as a follow-up to that, I guess one of the storylines I wanted to talk to you about was as it relates to, I guess, the professionalization, I guess, NIL and things of that nature, but based on what you've seen or what you've observed, not only from the NFL perspective, but also being involved in the Black College Hall of Fame and interacting with players and helping some players with the NFL professional model, what have you seen or what do you expect in terms of the professionalization of college football and everything that's been coming down in the last year?
Just in terms of the overall NIL structure and all of the money and how it impacts black college football?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to negatively impact black college football. It's going to negatively impact all non-FBS programs. I mean, you look at the NFL, I think the past 2 seasons, there's been maybe 17, 18 players drafted from non-FBS programs, not just black colleges.
Right.
This year we had Carson Vincent come out of Alabama A&M as the only black player drafted from an HBCU. But this is happening to Coastal Carolina and Montana State and places like that as well. And it's because the lower divisions of football have basically become junior colleges in a lot of ways. Because, look, right now we can sit there and talk all we want about University of Florida or University of Texas having this top-ranked recruiting class. After a year or two, half those kids are gone, right? They're transferring to USC. They're transferring to University of Wisconsin. Whatever. Well, to replenish some of that talent, those FBS schools are coming down to the FCS level, right? They're coming to the black colleges. They're coming to, the Coastal Carolinas of the world. I mean, we saw that with the receiver out of Arkansas Pine Bluff last year who led the SWAC in receiving. Well, he's at Oklahoma now. So it's something that's going to continue to happen. Look, our HBCUs have the money to pay a handful of players depending on what sport we want to do. But the money is so serious now in the NCAA that they're paying like all their players. They're paying all of them. Yeah. And the NIL structure allows the universities to follow a certain part of the payment, the distribution of funds now up to $21 million, I believe. But that's still not going to stop people like Arch Manning's and whatnot getting another $10 million from car dealerships or from Nike or from whomever. So it is big money.
Yeah.
There's agents and everything else involved now in college athletics because of the financial distribution to the athletes.
Go ahead, Kelvin. Thank you, Ms. Wyche.
Hey, Steve. So I want you to talk about opportunities for HBCU student athletes, right? And specifically, the Legacy Bowl, and we've had some kids that participated in that who got opportunities with NFL teams, and they stuck with those NFL teams. And on top of that, you look at now baseball, what Ken Griffey is doing with the Swingman Classic. And we had several HBCU kids, a couple of who played in that game, who actually got drafted in the Major League Baseball draft. So talk about the importance of that work and giving opportunities. And then the kids are showing that they belong or they can compete at that level. And is that what you was looking for when you got involved?
And that's a great follow-up question based on what I just said, because not every kid's going to leave their HBCU. I mean, look at Elijah Williams at Morgan State last year. He could have gone to a million different places. He was the MEAC Defensive Lineman of the Year. He stayed at Morgan State because he said they were the first team to give him a break. He was a year away from getting his degree and decided not to go D1A because of everything that happened there. Again, that takes a special character. But again, a lot of the athletes we get at HBCUs, they have a special character. And so the opportunities will still be there. When you talk about the Legacy Bowl, I think about this past year, right? Joaquin Davis, a 6'4", 195-pound wide receiver from North Carolina Central, shows up at the HBCU Combine, pops a 4.4 40. All 32 NFL teams have scouts there, right? So they're like, oh, wow, who's this big kid flying on the field like this? Pops another one. Has a good week of practice. Doesn't get drafted, but within an hour of the draft ending, he's with the Denver Broncos, right? He's been with them all summer. So the opportunities are still going to be there. Now, are NFL teams going to be paying as much attention to them during the season or in the preseason? Probably not. But they do have databases, things that weren't even around 10 years ago, where they can go into their systems. There's film on these guys. They can go, there's certain ways where they can get more information on these guys than needed. There just has to be a mindset among these NFL teams to say, okay, there's a kid who's been at Georgia for 4 years that we can draft in the 7th round. And then there's a kid who's been at Southern for 4 years who has added 15 pounds, who's improved every year, whose ceiling might be bottomless, and who may have a certain hunger because he's not at a major program. Like, we want that kid because we think there is a higher ceiling of someone who's been at a high level for 4 years and only manage this. That's the mindset that has to change. And the other thing about HBCUs, and guys, this, we are always told what we don't have. We're always talking about, hey, we don't have the weight rooms. We don't have the nutrition table. And it's true, right? But what do we do have? What do we have, and what do we do with it? Right? My journalism degree is the same degree that they get at Syracuse. But I'm gonna bust it. It's hard, right? So 135 pound, 245 pound plates on the bench press are the same at UCLA as they are at Morgan State. So are we going to work harder with what we supposedly don't have, even though there are some things when you break it down that are all equal? So again, we have to get into our own inner mindset to understand we can succeed. We can push it. All we need is that sliver of hope. And then once that door is open, it is up to us to do with it what we do have, not what we don't have.
Thank you. Thank you. And actually, I want to follow up with what you were saying and kind of circle a little bit back to my original question in terms of the pro MO for college sports. We've seen some, I haven't seen it at the HBCU level just yet, but we've seen some Power 4 schools hire a general manager, either in football or in basketball, and adopted kind of a very professional sports-like structure in hiring that person and having someone that would fill the role of director of player personnel or something like that. Do you see that eventually trickling down to HBCUs and following that same model out of necessity just to make sure that we keep up? Or how far do you think it'll go?
I do. A lot of it depends now on your athletic budget and what you are asking that general manager to do, right? So some major universities are asking their general manager to basically do what the athletic director does in terms of help out with scheduling, help out with a specific sport, mainly your football, your driver of revenue, and working on sponsorship deals, working on just the whole NIL structure for a specific sport. Or if you're at a school like University of Connecticut, basketball, right, for men's and women's. Other universities are letting the athletic director handle all of the hands-on, scheduling, building stuff out for 4 years, TV deals, things like that. Whereas this general manager, and these are the real creative schools now, says, okay, we need to hire a department of social media, not to tweet and Instagram what's happening now, but when we're recruiting players, right? And this is interesting. I was at a conference with this year. Suppose you got a football player that you really like and you're trying to up your NIL opportunities. Well, you can tell that player, hey, we've got this Howard University fan base that's, alumni base that's 3 million nationwide. We can ask all of them to follow you on Instagram. So now you can go to whomever and say, I'm an influencer. Just because you've got all this Howard, like we've got this Black College Lane from this university in Washington, D.C. We just gave you, out of those 3 million, let's say you get 1 million of them. We gave you a touch point that Oklahoma and Minnesota and all these schools don't have. So all of a sudden this kid can go up to whomever and say, I've got this lane. So you give me this money and I go to Howard University and this is all I can bring you. So again, these general managers, it all depends on how out of the box thinking you can be. And again, it's going to fail. It's going to fail a lot of these big places because again, they're asking maybe a redundant, this GM to be kind of redundant with the GM. I'm with the athletic director, but I spoke to some universities. I'm not going to name them, who are so super creative. They even have, like, under the general manager realm, departments of outside revenue. How can we come up with targeted revenue for 18 and 19-year-olds in ways that nobody can, right? So it's going to take an incredibly, especially at our HBCUs and maybe some that are not funded as well as others, incredibly brilliant outside thinking to bring in revenue dollars that they are not bringing in, but also does not put a strain on the limited budget that's already there. And that is a very difficult thing for us from HBCUs to break through, because one of our biggest Achilles heels is hanging on to the way things have always been done.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think my question ties quite well into what he just said. So I'm interested. You got the Sean Jackson now. You have Michael Vick in HBCU football. You had Dion previously. We got Terrell Buckley at Valley now. We got Charlie Ward even on the basketball side here at FAMU. So what do you think the impact is of those celebrity HBCU head coaches? And, what's the benefits? What's the drawbacks?
It's significant in terms of exposure, right? As we saw with Eddie George, right? As we saw with Dion. Right. These are Eddie's a Heisman Trophy winner, one of the best running backs of an era. Yeah. And look what he did for Tennessee State. He was able to use that personality and that persona to attract dollars, to attract people there. Same with Dion. You've already seen what's happening with Michael Vick and Deshaun. Aren't they playing a game at Lincoln Financial Field?
Right. Yep.
Right. Weren't MEAC Media Days now at I think the Ravens facility?
Yes.
That is significant.
Yeah.
Again, because I talked about financial touch points. Michael Vick had the first $100 million deal, I think, for a football player with Nike.
Yeah.
Right. Now he might be able to bring Nike, or if it's at the Ravens, you've got the Under Armour stuff. So what that does, if everybody can get over their jealousy and understand these are coattails, like in terms of the exposure, in terms of what they can bring, that's great. We'll kick their butt on the football field. Right. Let's ramp that up.
All right.
But let's invite that.
Yes.
I mean, who doesn't think that Reggie Barlow is going to follow Eddie George at Tennessee State and do a great job?
Right.
That guy's a great coach, right? He's going to do fantastic things.
Yes.
So, now you talked about the potential drawbacks. The potential drawbacks is Deion and Mike don't do well, right? Those are two schools where it's been difficult recruiting. Hopefully they're celebrity. I think someone just gave, I think the state of Delaware just gave Del State $20 million to help build a training facility.
Right.
Right. So maybe these are things that can help attract people, their relationships, right? Like Deion used social media to a core, just so brilliantly to bring in all his NFL buddies and all his NFL coaches. So you come to Colorado, you come to Jack State, I got these connections that can get you to the NFL. If not to the NFL, I can get you at Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's where they're going to have to put in the extra effort, because Deion put in the heavy lifting. We could talk about how he wasn't going door-to-door recruiting. That's because he was busy bringing money to Jackson State that they hadn't had before.
Right.
And so, you're hoping that everybody benefits and everybody eats off of it. And you're hoping that these conference commissioners understand, milk it while you can. Michael Vick going home to Norfolk, if he can get some winners there, if he can win ball games there, man, do you know what that'll do for the community, what that could do for the conference, and what it absolutely can do for NSU? I mean, it's in so many different ways in so many different sports.
Just to follow up on that, a question: do you think Michael Vick, being a native of the Tidewater area, gives him, being the homeboy, gives him an advantage over Deshaun Jackson with his, upbringing? They both have some Philadelphia Eagles ties, but Deshaun, from what I recall, grew up in California, so he's
grew up in LA.
Yeah. So, is there a certain advantage with having that hometown connection that you think might help Michael Vick achieve success faster than Deshaun Jackson?
I can't sit there and say that. You have to look at their coaching staffs. You got to look, you think Mike should be able to keep some of the guys from the Peninsula and Tidewater area there, but Old Dominion's right down the road. William and Mary's right up the road. Right. So just on that level of player, he's got to out-recruit them as well, not just other HBCUs. So, and he's got to put in the work, man. He's got to utilize that, and Mike is a guy, someone who covered him when he played with the Falcons. Mike wasn't that guy, right? Mike was very to himself, very insulated inner circle. He has got to be everywhere now. Mm-hmm. He has got to go shake hands, kiss babies, meet with community leaders and everything on the daily to get that program back rolling again. Now, in terms of Deshaun, he's got to do the same thing. See, the thing with Deshaun is that campus is a little bit more isolated, right? It's over there in like a military base area from what I think. So he's got to really lean into that and say, why not Del State? We've put guys in the NFL. I can help you get there. Every receiver coming from this region, you want to learn from me because I was a bad dude. And I've got ways to show you, and I've got connections to show you. Why not Del State? Again, it's always going to be a tougher sell, but I respect these guys for trying. I respect these universities for maybe seeing something in them. Let's hope it's not a novelty and they fully lean in like Eddie did, like Deion did, like Doug Williams did back in the day at Morehouse and at Grambling, right? Yeah. These former players, this is nothing new.
It's not.
We know at HBCUs, this has been going on for 60, 70 years. But this kind of guys who didn't attend HBCUs all of a sudden kind of finding this and doing this, I think is really, really intriguing. Even some guys like Bobby Wagner, right, who's not coaching, he's still playing, but he's getting his MBA from Howard, and he's pushing that Howard brand out there even more. And so I think these are different ways when I talk about finding alternate revenue streams and attention streams. Lean in. do not be jealous, do not be envious, and do not be petty. This is a time where dollars are being poured into collegiate athletics, and don't be caught on the outside, because it is going to be a long, huge gap between you and the next guy if you do.
Yeah, and to that point, Steve, you've been around these NFL guys. You've been with the NFL Network since what, 2008 or so?
Yep.
I heard Shady McCoy talking about he would love to, if a position came open in DC, that he would love to have an opportunity there. You didn't see a lot of superstar athletes, especially who didn't go to HBCUs.
Right.
Interesting to come to HBCUs, but you look at how Dion and some of the ones who, Eddie George, how they have transitioned from taking that opportunity, putting in the work, doing well, and then they move to the next level. I'd be interested to know what you think in terms of is that now something that is not just from the HBC stand, but from the NFL black players standpoint, is that an avenue for them to get into coaching at higher level quicker and be able to elevate?
That's a great question. And it does seem trendy, right?
Yeah.
You saw Ed Reed flirt with Bethune-Cookman before.
Yeah.
But I mean, even guys like Bubba McDowell,
right?
Even who played at the University of Miami was coaching on a Prairie View,
yeah,
right? So that's a way for them to learn. There used to be the thinking, and this was not long ago, if you coach at an HBCU, you're going to get locked into the HBCU world. You're never, no one is ever going to view you other than a black college coach.
Right.
I think with these guys, the mindset is changing a little bit, because they saw what Dion did. They've seen what Eddie George is. Other guys have done this.
Right.
But they didn't have social media to track it, right? They didn't have HBCU Go and ESPN, NFL Network, and everything else to stay on this on the daily. So this is intriguing to them. And, look, I was thinking about this the other day. The guy we have to credit for a lot of this goes back about 10 years, and that's Chris Paul, right? The basketball player, when he went back to Winston-Salem State, here's a Wake Forest grad, goes back to Winston-Salem State, gets his degree. Next thing you know, all the NBA players are coming in wearing HBCU gear. LeBron's got a shoe at FAMU.
Right.
MJ's branded at Howard and several other HBCUs.
Yep.
So it's all just, again, let's get creative. Let's see if guys want to do it. Hey, this is a way where I can leave the playing field in the NFL and go straight to being a head coach. Because a lot of these guys have played for great coaches, and they've got that bug, and they know how to build a staff and run a practice and do all that. They're going to get hit with a reality check in a lot of different ways.
Right.
You ain't living in Philly anymore. You're living in some place you've never set foot in. But I think what also helps is so many of these guys being younger, they can relate to some of these younger players. And I think that helps as well. But I think the one thing that I said that's really been shaken is no one's thinking if I go coach at a black college that I'll never, ever be able to graduate to the level maybe they want to end up being at.
Okay. And to that point, I guess one thing we've talked about on our show quite a bit, I think Kelvin was alluding to it, let's say, quote unquote, a launching pad type cradle of coaches mentality. And you mentioned creative athletic directors when it comes to the changing landscape financially. And from your perspective, how do we change our paradigms, and I'm speaking generically, or in HBCUs, whereas we're accustomed to some of the legendary coaches staying for decades, and that's not the paradigm anymore. So how do we fashion our athletic departments to be swift, almost like a professional team, in that we develop coaches, and when a coach moves on, we don't have that lag or that extended, protracted search when we're trying to find someone, but also letting go of the paradigm of having a coach stay for X amount of time, where that isn't our reality now, maybe even in general society, but much less the coaching treatment.
Great question. And it very much goes to what I said earlier, is like too often there are HBCUs and a lot of schools well, this is how we've always done it. Well, you tell me a head of a company right now that's succeeding, that's killing the stock market, who tolerates this is how we've always done it. It's always about let's find new ways to do it, right? It's constant new streams of figuring things out. So that's part of it. So now let's take a pro model, right? Let's have our athletic directors, instead of saying, okay, this coach is leaving or we want to fire this coach, identify, okay, this offensive coordinator at FAMU has been crushing us for 3 or 4 years. He's put 3 or 4 kids in the NFL. Let's identify him. But then let me also call up a former assistant coach who's on our staff, who's now coaching with the Commanders or coaching with the Seahawks. Let's see if him or he can help us identify some people who might be interested, whether they're a current player, whether they're somebody on staff right now. There are all kinds of ways, if we can come out of the this is how we've always done it mindset, to identify future talent. I mean, one thing that, a lot of coaches, we've heard this for years, like a good NFL coach can look at a player and be like, one day you're going to be a really good coach. Well, that player maybe never thought of coaching, and that's what gets that thought bubble over his head, like this may be a transition I want to make. So I again, a lot of times, and I think that's a great question, Marcus, that you talked about, because I think about with Rod Milstead, like he won football games at Delaware State, and ever since he's been gone, they just can't get it back. Now, has it been a change in athletic structure? Does there need to be a change in the athletic department structure? Like there's all kinds of unanswered questions that go along with this. But again, I think these athletic departments identifying people years ahead. You go to any NFL team right now, all 32, they have a list of probably 7 to 10 potential head coaches, even if they just signed their coach to a brand new 5-year extension, just in case that coach gets ill, right? Just in case he retires or passes away. But they've got that short list. They've done that homework on them. We're talking about these GMs and stuff like that. Have your homework done. Know if this guy's got some stuff in his past. It's where you can't bring him on a college campus, even though he might be an intriguing talent. Don't be surprised by anything. It doesn't take a ton of effort, but it does take a ton of commitment to your program if you want to see it succeed.
All right, Steve, I think I got an interesting question here. So you grew up in Minnesota, you went to Missouri, then you went to Howard, graduated from Howard. Professionally, you worked in Miami, you worked in Atlanta, you worked in DC. You're out on West Coast now, right?
Yep, in LA.
So tell me, that's a lot of traveling, man, from coast to coast. But and you covered me and Marcus' favorite team, the Falcons, for about 4 years. So, but I would like for you to just talk about professionally 1 or 2 of your most memorable moments or thoughts.
There's a lot of them, and a lot of them came from when I was, in print journalism. You talked about the majority of those stops. I didn't do TV until I started doing the NFL Network, starting in 2008, where I was based in Atlanta for 4 years before coming to LA. But, look, I used to cover pro boxing when I was down in Miami, and I was at the Tyson Holyfield fight, where first of all, when Evander beat him. No, everyone was like, where's this coming? I mean, there's nothing like being at a heavyweight fight, especially back when boxing was really a crown jewel of a sport. It's really gotten saturated and whitewashed now. Yeah. But I mean, that's clearly some notable stuff. When I used to cover the NBA, I covered Michael Jordan as a player and when he was an executive with the Washington Wizards. So those were interesting things because in the NBA you have guaranteed contracts, so everyone likes to talk. And then football wise, I mean, and it's the biggest story I've ever done. It still has a lot of socio-political legs. I was the first one to notice Colin Kaepernick not standing for the national anthem at that preseason game. So there's been a billion highs. And I don't like to necessarily talk about the work I've done to amplify that and spread the message to the media, but just to sit here and say, hey, I've been at 20 some Super Bowls, and I've been at I watched Michael Jordan bury the shot over by Bryan Russell against Utah in Game 6. I've how fortunate I've really been, and now I'm at the phase of my career where being involved with things like the Legacy Bowl and helping young broadcasters and seeing these young men and these coaches get some just due shine when normally that's really purposeful and meaning to me as well. So I think I'm still in a groove. I haven't hit my peak yet, and every day is really rewarding.
Okay, follow up to that is there anyone that you haven't had opportunity to story you would like to cover that you haven't yet, and also tell me about one experience where you think where you bombed. It was like, oh man, I wish I could do that over.
just one. I think one thing that I probably would love to cover that I have not covered yet. This is a great question. I've never thought about this, but it would probably be, like a Olympic track and field. I don't want to cover anything else in the Olympics. I want to cover swimming. I want to cover gymnastics, but just track and field, some of those events, because those people have great stories to tell and things like that. Where I have just flopped, I've never really gotten smoked to like trying to, win a story or anything like that. But there's a lot of things I wish I would handled well or better. And one of them was one of the first big stories I ever did when I worked in Richmond, Virginia. They had a top basketball recruit named Kendrick Warren, one of the best players in the country. And someone just gave me a tip like, hey, I hear he's going to go to VCU. And this guy was getting recruited by Jerry Tarkanian, UNLV, and all the major programs. And so I called over to his high school. I was like, hey, can I come over and interview this kid? Well, as soon as I walk in the building, he just happens to be standing right there. And so I start talking to him. So I probably surprised him. He's a 16, 17-year-old kid. And I'm 23, 24. I probably surprised him. And he's telling me some stuff probably out of nerves and just like, what is this guy doing? I don't know this guy. Instead of being in a more controlled and understanding environment with his head coach right there and everything. So I have this big story. Yeah, Kendrick Warren commits to Virginia Commonwealth. And everyone's like, wow, and the college coach couldn't talk right then. It was a closed recruiting period. So I couldn't get that type of confirmation on the record, but I got it. I got it.
Right.
And I really put the young man in a bad spot because his recruiting was still wide open, and it was a different time. So that's one of the stories I've always been like, man, I really wish I would have handled that better. Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. All right.
Mr. Wyche, we do appreciate your time this evening. Been gracious to give us a little OT.
I love this though. You guys are like really insightful questions. I mean, these are questions I don't get. These are questions I wish that, a lot of people understood and really would ask because they're very meaningful and they're very important. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing and letting your audience, really get a feel for your mission and your purpose, because I can tell it's really not about you. And I respect that. It is about something bigger. And I appreciate you guys letting me get a small slice of that pie tonight.
Well, you're welcome to come back and get a slice anytime you want.
Just holler at me. I'm here for you. Okay, just don't be calling me after the classic talking. I may be calling you guys after the Orange Blossom. But
that was going to be my next question. Are you going to have a chance to partake in Miami? And if so, if I don't know where the preseason falls. If so, I don't know if I'll be coming, but I know Kelvin and Bryan will be down there. Perhaps we can extend the opportunity for you to come in and,
that's Labor Day weekend though, right?
Yeah.
I believe it's Labor Day weekend. So at NFL Network, at NFL Network, we'll actually be broadcasting, I think right after that, the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic, known as the Clash of the Classic, with Miles College against Virginia Union, the CIAA championship season starter. So that'll be on NFL Network, coming to you from the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. So you guys will be down there.
That's right.
Doing your thing. I'll be working with an eye on the score, and I will know very well how to hide from y'all if I need to. But you guys better be ready. I might be coming at you with a big dump truck or something.
Oh,
We win.
no.
It's all love.
All
Either way.
love.
That's
All
right.
love.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Wyche, once again, thank you for your presence this evening. And, don't be a stranger. We'll reach out when opportunity presents. If there looks like there's a window where we can have you back on. So once again, we do appreciate you, and I'm sure our audience appreciates your insights as well.
Thank you. All the best, Chance. Appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll take a quick break and come back right after these words.
I'm attorney Clinton Paris, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being heard.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to The Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Attention football fans. The Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge kickoff is back in Atlanta on August 23rd. Representing the MEAC, North Carolina Central, and representing the SWAC Southern. Join us at Center Park Stadium for a full day of tailgating, football, and bands. For more information and tickets, visit MEACSWACChallenge.com.
Welcome back to the O&G StrikeZone. We have Kelvin Rozier and Marcus Green, and our brother Bryan Fulford's on assignment, holding it down for BCSN at game time at the SWAC Media Days.
And let me just give a shout out to BCSN and the whole crew, Dr. Cavill and Carlos Brown and all of them was there. And also Fang Exchange was there. It was great to see all of our peers there doing their job and doing it at a high level, I must say at that. And I'm sorry that I couldn't be there. I was supposed to be there, but life be lifing sometimes. So I lived through and watched some great interviews and got some information through them. And Marcus, I think the first place I would like for us to go in this hour is to kind of talk about the SWAC predicted order of finish. So there was a predicted order of finish for this season, and it kind of went the way that I think we had discussed, the way most people frankly thought it would go. Was similar to last year. Jackson State in the East was selected to finish first with 126 first place votes. Florida A&M was second with 99. Alabama State was third, predicted third with 91. Alabama A&M, and then Bethune and Valley bringing up the rear. And then on the west side of things, again, Jackson State won the East last year. Southern won the West last year. Southern finished first in the West with 120 points. Alcorn second with 90 points. Prairie View is third with 72 points. Then Texas Southern Grambling and Arkansas Pine Bluff. Two things that stood out to me. Southern has one more first place vote than Jackson State. 16-17. And then the two other things that I found interesting, Prairie View in third. I didn't know. I figured it'll be out of them and Alcorn for between second and third. They only separated by one first place vote, but it's separated by 18 points total. And I get that, even though there's a lot of hype around Prairie View and the coach has credentials, you got to see it first, and then in year one you don't know how it's gonna all come together. And then last but not least, the third thing that I will point out was I noticed that Bethune Cookman, who's predicted to finish fifth, got a first place vote, and then Arkansas Pine Bluff, who's predicted to finish last in the West at 6, got a first place vote. And me and Bryan, we had this discussion last week, I think it was, about whether or not they should do away with the preseason predicted order finish. Right now, the ADs and head coaches, I think, vote for it, and I'm sure that some people probably pass it off to one of their assistants or equipment guys, something to fill out the ballot. And if they're not going to take it seriously, do away with it or let the media be. Just go with the media and let the media do the voting. That would be my only tweak. But I'm interested to know what's your thoughts about these predictions.
It's not surprising. I mean, we've the last few years, and I guess typically we'll see the rankings kind of fall along the lines of how things ended in the previous year, if there are no major changes. And it looks like, on the west side, Southern's retooled. I guess they have a couple new quarterbacks, and maybe address some of the issues, whatever issues they discovered last year. And for the reigning champs to come back, I mean, they haven't lost a whole lot in terms of, and typically we're quarterback driven. So they have the starting quarterback returning. So that in and of itself kind of catapults them to number one in the Eastern Division, where you have the other two teams. We have a rehabilitated Andrew Body coming back for Alabama State. He played 3/4 of a game last year, the first game, and then he was out injured for the remaining of the year. And then now you have FAMU with a brand new starting quarterback this will be our third consecutive year. Well, we did have Musa come back for 2 years, but we've had 3 quarterbacks in 3 years.
Yeah.
So, that in and of itself, and any of the specter of not having a successful quarterback returning, you can understand how teams that typically are strong but might not have gotten that benefit of the doubt because of the uncertainty or the unknown at the main position. But overall, I wasn't really surprised at the top teams, or at least the top couple of teams, just based on performance last year. I'm not sure to what degree, in terms of Prairie View, when I'm looking at the West, I don't know if it's, returning players or who may have transferred in, and the fact that, 2 years ago they were in the SWAC championship game. And if there's just a feeling that there's some carryover for some of that talent. But, for a first-year coach, and I guess you could say the same for us last year, FAMU coming off a championship, being the only difference, being a third team in division preseason with a brand new coach. So I'm not really surprised there, and I'm not surprised in the East either, because, Jackson State returning champs, and then we were basically tied for second with Alabama State and had the tiebreaker by virtue of our win. So the top 3 didn't really surprise me either. And then you have, Valley, who doesn't historically get the benefit of the doubt. Bethune-Cookman coming off a hard season last year, and Alabama A&M with a brand new coach and some new energy there. But once again, first-year coach following up in the Connell Maynard era, where they may not have always achieved what they had hoped. So, yeah, I can understand. It didn't really surprise me.
I agree. Pretty much everything went chalk. You know, you can't really argue. The two teams who were in the championship last year, I think, returned the most stability in terms of the quarterback position for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they have nice pieces around that, and they still got the same coaches and everything. So I get it. But like with any season, there'll be some surprises here and there. Somebody, who's your dark horse? If you had to pick somebody who might come out of nowhere, who's your dark horse?
Overall or by division?
Either one.
I'm curious about Alabama A&M. Just because they do have a first-year coach, but he's engineered a couple of upsets over SWAC teams in the recent past, coming from Miles College. And I'm just curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember where he ended up, but where did the quarterback for UAPB, did he end up at Alabama A&M or did he end up somewhere else? I thought he stayed in the conference.
Yeah, he went to Alabama A&M.
So you have an experienced quarterback who knows the league, and is it Mekhi Higgins? Is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he was tearing it up with UAPB. They weren't, and overall their record wasn't that great, but in terms of production between him and the wide receiver that ended up transferring to Oklahoma, so you have one piece of the puzzle there, that you have an experienced quarterback that may be in a new system, but can ball and knows the conference.
Okay.
So I'd say watch out for them.
Okay. I know peer review is a popular pick for a lot of people, but I'm interested in Alabama State. If Andrew Body is healthy and they use him, because the first game against Central last year, they were platooning and they had the other guys starting, and all their production was when Body was in there. So if they all bought in with Body and he's healthy and he can stay healthy for the season, they can be very interesting. They can be a very interesting team and really throw a monkey wrench in the East.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Especially if they don't drop off defensively, because they've been, I think the last 2 or 3 years, I know we dropped off, and we'll talk about that a little, maybe future show when we do our preview. Yeah. But Alabama State didn't drop off defensively. They just had some challenges with scoring or consistently scoring. But from a defensive standpoint, they've been top 10 FCS since we came in the league.
Now the difference this year is they did lose their defense coordinator and a couple of position coaches. So we'll see if the production changes, and if they can make up for part of that on the offensive side of the ball. Now, the other thing that came out that I want to get into before we talk about the media deal is the all SWAC teams. And FAMU had 8 players named all SWAC, first and second team. Jacobian Morgan was named from Jackson State, the quarterback, was named Offensive Player of the Year. And Southern's Kelby Givens was named the Defensive Preseason Player of the Year. And then on first team offense, FAMU has Thad Franklin, running back, offensive lineman Charles Davis, and offensive lineman Ashton Grable. And then on the first team defense, we had Davion Westmoreland, defensive end, linebacker Naron Jenkins, and defensive back TJ Huggins. So that's 6, 3 on offense, 3 on defense, first team all SWAC preseason. And then on the second team, the Rattlers were defensive lineman James Gardner Jr., as well as defensive back Jamil Sanders. Now, why I personally love this because our team is built for a championship run because we built in the trenches, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we got offensive linemen returning, all SWAC performers. Then you got 2 defensive linemen who first and second team, all SWAC, and pretty much that whole group from the defensive line, front 7, coming back, along with some guys who set out last year. So there's a lot of potential depth as well as talent in those positions. But 8 Rattlers, first or second team, preseason all SWAC. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it bodes well. And it's kind of I guess in alignment with some of the things I heard with Coach Colsey talked about today during some of his interviews. He mentioned, wanted to shore up the lines and that was going to be a key to winning the conference, but also that building back that talent. That there was something missing in terms of maybe the talent, but also the level of preparation. And I don't mean that from the coaching standpoint, but getting players in late, having folks come in and not having a full squad even for spring, and the differences he's seen this past year. And so I think having those 8 players and then the players who are returning, who may have come in last year, who did come back to FAMU, and understanding what the standards are and what the expectations are. I think that depth and that talent may not rival 2023 team, but I think it'll be close, or at least get us back to a standard what we're accustomed to. Because last year, the line play, at least on the defensive line, wasn't the standard we expected. We come to expect over the last 3 or 4 years. And that didn't
agree. Overall, I don't see. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and also that doesn't, for a while, I guess it's been a couple of years since we have not had a wide receiver, someone at a wideout position to make the team. But I think we have sufficient talent coming back. But I know that in terms of the returning talent for each of the teams in the SWAC, that the returning players with productivity, of course, are going to get it. So I'm not, hating on anybody, anything like that. But I think we do have some talent that's going to show out this year. And we have a variety of talent. We have some big receivers. We have some speedsters. So I think it'll present an opportunity for Coach Burris to really open up the toolbox.
Yeah, and I'll just add one other thing. We'll have a quarterback named, and the quarterback we'll have this year for the first time, I think, will be more of a real dual threat. So defense will have to scheme and play us a little different with that threat of quarterback being able to run. So I'm looking forward to how all that plays out. We'll get into FAMU roster. I know that the roster, is being updated and it's close to complete, but it's not there yet. But we'll get into the roster more in depth and have an article about that probably at the end of the month, right? So the next thing that came out of SWAC Media Days that is I'm very excited about is the new SWAC TV.
Mm-hmm.
Where they announced that essentially SWAC Digital has kind of been replaced, and they're going to actually have a SWAC TV channel, right? And I did some digging because the article, didn't say a whole lot, so I had to talk to some folks who in the know, and they dropped some really good information about this. So the SWAC has been actually working on this. This is something that it just didn't pop up from my sources. They've been working on it for a few years actually, and that they went to some media experts who work in the field and some companies to kind of talk about, Charles McClellan is pretty connected. He's active with the NCAA and so forth. You know, he was over the basketball committee for NCAA basketball. So he has some connections, and my understanding, you know, they took their time and they researched this thing and talk through it. And so this is something that's not relying on the schools, because the schools' resources and the equipment and so forth can be inconsistent. This is something where the SWAC as a provider, the SWAC chooses the games. They have a provider that will go out and do all the production for this, you know, and you'll be able to catch this. You can catch these games that are streamed on the services through Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, Google Play, Android TV, as well as the website. So, um, you know, we talked about, you know, the need to have consistency and quality in watching events. This is not a football only platform. This will also include all the sports, but I'm looking at just the football lineup, and I see Albany State at Florida A&M on the lineup. As let me see, do we have
all the games? Yeah, all the games that we have 8 games that are split between ESPN and HBCU Go. So when we talked about it yesterday, kind of, you know, in our own separate conversations, whether it be on social media or person to person, we're wondering about the other 4 games, if they were going to somehow get marketed out, and then they dropped this today.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that not only, to Jimmy Mack's point, that and I know there's been a lot of well-researched and well-meaning conversation about the ESPN deal and things of that nature, and about the transparency thereof, and everything that was going on with the lawsuit with Urban Edge. But I guess if they've been working on us for a few years, this kind of illuminates some of those happenings, and perhaps the stance that the commissioner was taking, and that I guess on behalf of the conference, or leading the conference, that they were taking, because they wanted to put their arms around the intellectual property that they hadn't already contracted out, and make sure that they had control of it, so they could market it as a package and reap those revenue dollars as it relates to advertising, things of that nature. And you know, I guess now, and I'm making a broad leap, but now it tends to make sense in terms of the approach that they were taking for the last couple of years as it relates to that.
Well, and I think it's important, if you look at the major conference, for instance, you know, you look at the FBS conference, they have multiple media packages where they own multiple platforms. And I think it's important for HBCUs and SWAC in this case, specifically because when you have the ESPN and HBCU Go, you're not always the priority. And you have all this inventory that's available that people are interested in, content they want to see. You know, we talked about, you know, last year with baseball and basketball not being able to see, you know, or the softball, and you know, not being able to see games, you know, and championship, at least at the championship games, right? So this way, the SWAC is able to control or prioritize their inventory for all sports, number one, that are not a part of those other platforms. And then this is another revenue opportunity, right? Now, the beautiful thing about this, and I think is absolutely the right choice, and like they did their research, so I trust, you know, what they're doing with this is that the access is free, right? So the revenue side is coming from the sponsors and the marketing and selling of advertisement. And you know, when this is year one, you're building the platform, you want to have people to come watch your content, number one. And also you know, you want people to be able to have access, and you got to, you know, make sure that all, you know, everything I you know, is professional and all the bugs are worked out. Because, you know, I would tell you, not everybody knows, when you travel to some of these stadiums, and especially some of these isolated areas, you know, that's why I thought it was really important that they outsource it with a production company, because you don't have, the all the hookups and the and the things you need on site uh from the school. So that's why to have a self-contained production that comes to the site, and that's the only priority, is to broadcast and produce this content. I think it's big, man. It's really huge, man, and I'm excited to see it. And so those, we knew that the HBCU goal and the ESPN lineup for FAMU, and then the rest of our games are going to be a part of SWAC TV.
And the other thing that I did catch, Commissioner McClellan's interview with, I think it was with Bryan and everyone. So it was on the VCN on the Game Time. One thing that stuck out to me that he said when he was announcing this, so he was like, "Yeah, I'd want to be able to watch 1984 Mississippi Valley versus Alcorn, on that." So what that says to me, and I know that we've talked about it in the past, and I've even been a patron of it. I know there's a couple of folks who have YouTube channels with classic HBCU games. But what that spoke to me when he said that was that they wanted to put their arms around the historical intellectual property and make sure that it's not, that there's some benefit to the conference as it relates to that intellectual property. And it kind of ties into something that we also talked about before in some instances where the colleges or athletic departments haven't always historically been good about managing and protecting their intellectual property or trademarks or award marks or things of that nature. And I guess one case in point for us is the Orange Blossom Classic. But the SWAC looks like, in terms of its digital property, in terms of the athletics, the games that they don't already have contractually obligated to other networks, they're going to put their arms around and make sure that they manage that and reap revenue from it.
All right. And the last thing we'll go over before we go take our next break, our last break, is we'll talk about the actual participants for FAMU that in the media day. So offensive lineman Ashton Grable, defensive end Davion Westmoreland, and head coach James Colsey were the participants for FAMU, and just kind of talk about what what they talked about and what you got from this SWAC media day from them.
For me, or both of them are entering their senior year, the last year of eligibility, and both of them spoke to making sure that they put in their maximum effort in order to get back to the mountaintop. I think Ashton Grable was here on that 2023 team. I think that was his first year with the team, coming in as a transfer, I believe, from Jacksonville State in Alabama. Davion Westmoreland came in last year. So he didn't experience the trophy euphoria as it relates to the Celebration Bowl, but I'm sure he's well aware of it, walking through the field house and seeing all the trophies and everything. But they really spoke to the seriousness that they're taking. And they mentioned, when I saw the interview with the BCSN, they mentioned they thought they may have slipped back a little bit in terms of complacency, perhaps coming off the high of the championship, at least for Ashton Grable, or perhaps Davion Westmoreland, sensing that a teeny bit, maybe during the course of the season. So I think they're coming back with a renewed focus. And Coach Colsey mentioned that he wasn't trying to send a message as it relates to the players that he brought. He said he brought two players that he thought were well deserving senior players. But if you have an offensive lineman who's all conference, goes like 6'3", 6'4", and then you got a defensive lineman, about the same, there's probably a little intimidation factor there too. So I don't know necessarily a coach, saying they deserve it, and I'm not doubting that. And they both are on the preseason team, and it helps when you're like 6 foot plus and got some stature about you to kind of reemphasize what this team is going to be about.
Marcus, when I was watching the interview, one of the things that hit me that I thought about was that from a football staff and roster, this probably been one of the most quiet off seasons that we've had in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, there's always noise between videos, and coaches leaving.
Hey, let me knock on wood, but it's been relatively uneventful. The guys have been, went through spring with most of the team, about 80 something of the guys, they're 82, 83 now, and then since I believe since May 28th, somewhere around there, we had about 90 to 93, and now you pretty much got the 105. They've been going through the off-season workouts, and they start regular workouts on the end of the month, like the 31st, I think, 30th or 31st. So it's it's getting really close, but I like the workman, like the blue collar discussions and how an approach that both players had as well as Coach Cozy, and all they talked about was championships, and wanted to get back there, and like you say, wanted everybody who hadn't experienced putting that ring on, being champions, and the euphoria from Rattler Nation to do so. So we were blessed, in terms of the returning players outside of the tight end spot. We didn't really lose anybody that we were expecting to return, unlike the previous years. And that says something about I believe about what the guys feel about the staff that they're working with too, not just the family. We know family has a great has a culture, and it's contagious, right? Once you get bit by it, but I think the guys feel really good about their team, their brothers, their coaching staff, and I like it like this, right? The business, because they have talent, and I think we ain't predicted sucking for nothing. All right, people know we got talent, maybe more than what they don't know, right? But the tone of this team is the way was where it should be, right? They just put in the work, man, and chop wood every day, get 1% better every day, and then when we get to the season, we'll be where we want to be. The other thing, and I saw somebody mention it earlier, that Coach Cozy mentioned that I thought was pretty big. He announced that he was announced the starting quarterback sooner than he did last year. He won't go to like the week of or the week before. So to me, that tells me you've got 7 guys who kind of competing theoretically as far as numbers, but that tells me there's probably 2 or 3 at the most that they're looking at, and they got to get those reps in. So you can't prolong it too long, and I'm sure they've had a chance to kind of see. And he did mention, I think, 2 or 3 names, and that's where it's going to be, I believe, in those 3 names. So, but man, football season is almost here. I'm very excited about it. You got anything else to add?
No, I think it was a good representation of the school. The 2 players are there, and Coach Colsey. I still haven't seen the ESPN one, so I'm going to try to catch his interview with Jay Walker. But I did get a chance to catch all the other interviews and even the questions that were asked during the open media session. It's the Zoom session that each of the coaches had. So got a chance to kind of hear some consistent messaging there, but also some very good questions asked on the media side. So I think it gives us a good feel for what we have coming. We'll just have to wait and see on the quarterback question, but I think all the other positions seem to be pretty well stocked. And I also believe that the way this team has been built, at least the recruiting that we've seen so far, was, I guess for me, more in alignment. I guess for both of us, more discussion we had this time last year in that Coach Colsey, we thought he would be more balanced and not really pass first that we have seen the last few years. And I think his molding of the recruiting this year, especially at the tight end position and the number of linemen on both sides of the ball, is going to speak to the character of the type of teams that he wants to have. And so he's putting more of his foot and more of his fingerprint on it, like Bryan has said in the past, as it relates to the personnel and how the team's going to go. So I would think that the last two games we saw last year in the Florida Classic and the game against Alabama A&M may be more indicative of what we're going to see this year in terms of the offensive style.
Agreed. All right, we're going to go ahead take it to our last break. This is the O&G Strike Zone. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is Bryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Football fans, HBCU football is back in the ATL with the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge Kickoff. Representing the MEAC, North Carolina Central, and representing the SWAC, Southern, Eagles, Jaguars, the Marching Sound Machine, the Human Jukebox. The kickoff trophy is up for grabs, and bragging rights are on the line. The rivalry is real. Bring the family and join us pre-game for the fun-filled Coca-Cola fan experience, including band jamborees, food, activations, and fellowship. For tickets and information, visit MEACSWACChallenge.com.
All right, we're back.
Yep, back to O&G Strike Zone. Got Kelvin and Marcus holding it down for Bryan, who's doing who knows what in Birmingham.
I bet you got his earrings in his
ear. I was just gonna ask about the earrings. Oh man!
Hey, that ties into our next segment where we're going to talk about the Swingman Classic. Me and Bryan was able to link up. AD Drew was there too, and Roy Evans, the boss. And we went to the HBCU Swingman Classic held at Truist Park in Atlanta, Georgia on Friday. And we were able to meet up with Coach Shoup and had a chance to talk with him. Also, Mr. Workman. Shout out, Mr. Workman. and the family, they were there to watch Garrett pitch. We'll have hopefully him and Jay Campbell and Brody Popple at some point on the show. But the Rattlers, they showed out, man. It was a great day for Rattler Nation. Of course, Jay Campbell ended up hitting a home run at the time. I think it was the 7th inning, and at the time, he was with the National League team, and they were down 4-2, and it was a man on base, so it tied the game at 4-4. He ended up being voted the player of the game for it. Brody Popple started as at catcher. I know he had a hit, and one hit, and I know the hit that I saw was off his teammate Garrett Workman, and he legged out a double on that which really should have been a single. It was a risk, and he had to really get on his horse, but he showed his speed. And then of course Garrett got a chance to get in the game, and I asked his dad, what he thought about it, the environment and everything. He's like, man, this is big time, man. I love it, man. This is awesome, and I can't wait to get the guys on the show to kind of talk about their experience and everything. But everything was first class, man. It was, the only little damper was that it rained for a minute and stopped play for about 30 minutes, but nobody left, man. It was a great crowd too, man. The lower level was pretty much full from end to end, and people enjoyed themselves. So I enjoyed the experience. I was glad to see the players do well. I don't know. Did you get a chance to watch it, and what was your thoughts?
I did not get a chance to watch. I did see highlights on social media. So, I'm pleased that the Rattlers showed out, but also, as you mentioned before, in terms of HBCU players getting exposure. And then, seeing some of the fruit of that labor this week. I guess it was Wednesday when they had the MLB draft. No, it wasn't Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. I think this was Monday, one day earlier this week, where you see, I think there are 4 HBCU players who were drafted at some point during the MLB draft. Seeing the manifestation of all the hard work that they put in. So that was pleasing. And also the crowd turnout, I believe I saw something where it was maybe at least 20,000 in attendance. And so now you're exposing in a major league ballpark, thanks to Ken Griffey Jr. And to your point earlier, now in the 3 major sports, we have either all-star games or some type of showcase game for HBCUs. In football, I think basketball with Chris Paul's annual game or tournament, and then also the Swingman Classic. But it was good to see 20,000 people, and I don't know to what degree, all of them or many of them were HBCU graduates. It could be, or it could just be the casual fan, and now they're being able to lay eyes on some of the prospects and talent that is being developed at HBCUs on the baseball end. So now we have an opportunity to expose a brand new audience via a Hall of Fame baseball player and in a Major League Baseball park, and Major League executives that lay eyes on the talent that we've been cultivating and developing within the HBCU space.
It was definitely the HBCU crowd, even though it was some diverse crowd, with some non-HBCU folks there too, but it was a strong presence of the HBCU crowd. They had the Atlanta All-Star Band. I think it's a collection of high school students, I think, that played and gave the HBCU sound and flavor to the game. Also, the DJ was really good. He did a good job with old school, new school. Keeping the crowd involved, and they had the cam going when it was raining. The fan cam going, so people had fun with that. So yeah, it was a really cool, good experience. And yes, Melissa, I did find a hat, and I got us all the brethren hats. I didn't know that Bryan was a Braves fan though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's actually in baseball a Braves fan. I didn't know that.
That's interesting. Well, I guess in Indianapolis, I would have thought he may have been aligned with one of the Midwestern teams like the St. Louis Cardinals or the Chicago Cubs, just based on proximity. But I guess he grew up a Braves fan or became a Braves fan.
I'm thinking he probably became one. He probably was a Cardinals fan, growing up. But the other reason why I would say that is really important that Quinn Griffin is doing this is Brody Popple got drafted. He was the first HBCU player to get drafted this year, and he got drafted in the 13th round by the San Francisco Giants.
Mm-hmm.
He was projected to get. I was told he was projected to get drafted somewhere between 10 and 15, so he hit it right in that middle sweet spot. And I mean, he has that talent. I am convinced he's going to be FAMU's next major leaguer. He's versatile. He plays catcher, but he's played in the outfield. He has speed. He hits for power. He hits for average. He does a lot of things well. Super smart kid but the other reason why it was important, we talked with Steve about exposure, but the other part of that is you got to remember Workman and Jay Campbell are freshmen. So for them to have this experience, to see one of their teammates actually get drafted, in the second day of the Major League Baseball draft from the program, it lets them know that they can stay right where they at. And they hometown boys anyway, Tallahassee, they put on for the city, and then still, go and pursue their dreams at the next level. So I agree. I think it was really big from that standpoint.
I agree. And that was one of the things that was in the back of my mind was like, I'm glad they're participating, but I hope nobody's scouting out, looking at our true freshmen, trying to
stop jinxing us now.
Yeah, but I'm glad that they did get the exposure. And to your point, I mean, it's very, it'll put a mark in their mind that, hey, one of my teammates got drafted from FAMU, and I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to go somewhere the grass theoretically could be greener in order to realize my dreams.
Right. Absolutely. So, I know we're getting short on time, and our producer, she is tight. She run a tight ship, right? So, Marcus, I want to see if you can get into the updates of recruiting. I will see if we can put this out.
Yes. Look, I know you guys went over it last week. I am sharing I think I'm sharing my screen. I don't know. I know all right. So I'm not I always get mixed up when I put it on full screen PowerPoint or share it. So I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to leave it in the native. So a lot of the things you guys went over last week, even though Bryan did say I left off someone from track, but I did not. The person was there was one slide up above, but I'll go. The only new additions that I've seen in the last week or so, and I'm going to skip down. I've been looking too, and actually Instagram's been giving me a lot of offers that I didn't see on Twitter, so I'm gonna have to up my Instagram game. So for track and field, Kaya Boyd was the young lady that committed to us from McEachern High School in Atlanta. And I did have the slide already here, so Bryan, got to give me my props. So, but you guys reviewed Kirsten Clark coming over from Miles College, and talked about Zakira Snow coming over from Indian Hills Community College. The two new ones that I happen to find on Instagram, so I know I'm going to have to up my game there. Traquan Francis, and he committed, I think, when was the 11th? Friday? Thursday, Friday of last week. So I saw his commitment last week, and it was, luckily, I just happened to jump on and type something in, and two came up. So Traquan Francis on the men's side, he's a class of 2022 from Westgate High School in New Iberia, Louisiana. And he was at Indian Hills Community College out in Iowa and in McNeese State last year. And he comes with some accolades as a high school prep, and also as part of Indian Hills team that won the 4x800 relay, won a gold there for the outdoor, and also won a silver last year after leaving Indian Hills Community College, and went to McNeese, and he won silver for the outdoor in the 800 meter, not 880 millimeter. So I'll get that corrected. But he had a lot of accolades. I was running out of room, so I didn't put them all there. So he's committed to FAMU men's track. And this young lady, Laurie Lewis, a native of Florida, was a teammate of one of our other earlier commitments, Zakira Snow, also at Indian Hills Community College. So it seems like we have a connection there. So at least 2 out of our women's track recruits and 1 of our men's has ties to Indian Hills Community College, and they have a pretty good track program. And so she is committed same day, so last Friday, and she's from Miami, Florida, and as a prep ran at North Miami High School, and she qualified as a senior in 2023 for the state championship. And she was part of the indoor championship for the 400 meter relay and 24-25 for the region 11 NJCAA, the National Junior College Collegiate Association, and won a gold as well in the 4x400 and overall team bronze for 24-25. So we're getting some additional talent on the track end. And also what I'm doing, for our slides, because it's hard to tell which ones are been reviewed and which ones are older. I'm using a different background. So any slides that are new will be green. So if you and Bryan update or review these and don't have to depend on knowing which ones have been reviewed or not, I'll have a different color background for the new commitments or signees versus the older. I think that's all that we have. I don't think we had any others in any other sports that I happen to track. So basketball seems pretty set. Softball, we did get a commitment for, volleyball. We did get a commitment for 2026. So I did not include her here. But there's a young lady that committed this past summer. And I think this makes 3 summers in a row where we've had at least 1 commitment on volleyball going into their senior year. I think 2 years ago, it was Natalie. And last summer, it was, let's see, volleyball, who was it? I don't recall right off the top of my head, but it seems like we have at least 1 each summer where we have a commitment from a high school volleyball player. Softball, I don't think we have any new ones. I've not seen any, so we seem pretty set there.
I think the coaches were at a camp in Atlanta this weekend. And I do recall seeing, I think, 1. I don't know if it was for 26 or not, but I do recall seeing 1. But I'll shoot it to you if I see it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're in a good spot for most of our sports in terms of recruiting. And I know someone mentioned earlier that our roster is only showing a certain number, and I know you referenced it as well, but it'll probably get updated. Probably just, I'm assuming, my assumption, it's administrative things or things just making things short up. And I know correct. We also there's this 30-day window for folks or for players who are designated student athletes who otherwise would have been cut based on the 105 roster limit. And I know Coach said we're at 105. So I'm curious to know if there are any players that from last year's team who may be transitioning, but we'll see. We'll have to scout social media and look at the roster, compare last year versus this year for those who still have eligibility remaining to see what the differences are.
Absolutely. Good job with that, man. Appreciate your work on there. I just want to mention these going to be some news and notes real quick, and then we'll finish with the O&G awards. But Coach Ward added which is his final piece to his coaching staff. He added Eugene Granger, whose sister, for one, is a softball legend here, and owns on restaurants. April, and then but Eugene was the head coach at McClay High School here. He's been a head coach at FAMU High and Florida High too, I believe, if I have it correct. Very experienced, got a lot of relationships, connections with the high school circuit. Really good coach too, and so now Coach has Rob Lewis, Sebastian Aguilar, of course, his Gerard Lazarus, and Eugene Granger. I think it's an excellent staff, man. They are really connected, and you're going to see. I'm telling you now, you're going to see talent that we hadn't seen in a while on the court, as well as execution. Right? I know they're working real hard, and I'm really excited about some pending announcements too.
And you can see, I don't put them up here because just based from pure football and basketball, I mean, there's so many offers. I can't create a power slide for that because I'll be up here all day. I won't be able to go to work. But just from Instagram, which the kids seem to favor more than Twitter, at least on the basketball side, he's putting some offers out there to some really, really talented players.
4 stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and they're reaching out the class of 2027 and 2028 now for basketball. Well, basketball and football, but for basketball, Coach Ward and his staff, they're not shying away from anyone.
Well, I always talked about, how I thought our HBCUs need to lean into it and build relationships and partnerships. And that is what you're seeing with Coach Ward and his staff. Those guys have their relationships already as professionals, as coaches, as players. And so it matters.
Mm-hmm.
It matters, so they're going to get looks and they're going to get visits that others might not get. And I will say this, the roster, even though it's looking good, even though there's some numbers there, the roster ain't finished. By the end of this month, it may be a few gems for you. And I'm gonna leave that right there. The other thing I wanted to get to before we get to O&G StrikeZone, we get out of here, is the fundraiser for the 100, right? So, it came out today that there was a $50K donation from FAMU alumni, Sharon Ledman Hicks, who donated $50K to the Marching 100, and to help out with covering some costs, scholarships, etc. for the incomparable Marching 100. And I think I saw some uniforms or jumpsuits or some gear, some shoes too, LeBron things. So I think the 100 will be displaying some new gear at some point this season also. And they just finished, let me add also, they just finished the band camp this weekend at hundreds, like they always do, of students there from all over the country, and outside of and international. So very successful camp, and I look forward to them having a good year. You got any input on that?
No, I happened to see that on social media yesterday about the fundraiser for the band, and I'm sure it's warming the heart of Mike Reed, because he's been banging on that for years about the 100 selling Amelia, using it as a fundraiser. So he's probably just can't tell him anything now. But yeah, it turns out well, and I'm curious to know. I mean, from what they're selling, I don't know how that works in terms of, if you didn't play in the band, are you allowed to wear Marching 100 stuff? And I don't know how all that works. So I don't know if they're going to treat it like that or if it's like for.
Yeah, if it got 100, I would tell you, if it got 100 on it, that's why I think it's not, you can't buy it online and stuff. I think it's for, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's probably for 100 alumni first, primarily. Now, if they got some generic stuff, then maybe that's for everybody. But they pretty adamant about the 100 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll try to get somebody on to kind of talk about that effort too.
Okay.
And do you got anything we need to go to before we talk about the missing thing before we talk about the O&G awards?
Nah. Let's roll on into it.
All right. Well, as you all know, this is our third annual O&G awards coming up. The show is next Wednesday. I hope that Bryan will be opening up the voting so that everyone can vote for the different categories, and we can have our reveal. We may have a special guest or two, as we typically do for those shows. We also have another guest already lined up, and I will say, for the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're gonna have some loaded shows with a lot of information coming at you from a lot of different sports, not just football. All right, volleyball getting ready to kick off. There's some Nutrisite Classic games that are happening, so we'll probably have some folks who represent those games from the OBC to others potentially. And we're going to bring you fresh content right from the horse's mouth. So be looking out for that. Let's see how much time we got. Oh yeah, we're gonna get out here on time. Cause we don't have. I'm gonna sell out now. I'm gonna clown this last minute or two. Cause we ain't got Bryan on here running his mouth, all in the video. Trying to sing on your record. No, man, but no, Mr. B, we look forward for you to, coming back next week, man. I want to say thank you to Steve Wyche from the NFL Network for coming on the show. He dropped some real gems.
Oh yeah.
And was very kind with his words to us. And we appreciate that. And I also want to thank my producer, Mel B.
Yes.
For jumping in, calling on due to the long day. Last minute she jumped on in here and did a thing, man. We appreciate you, Mel. And that's all I got, Marcus. What you got?
Same ditto. Thanks for Mel for jumping in and help us out. We couldn't have done it without you. And once again, I want to thank Mr. Wyche for coming on, gracious with his time and able to slip us in before NFL training camp. And provided some valuable insight as it relates to the professional, being an insider that he is, and being able to help us maybe not only get information, perhaps even change our paradigm as we go forward and embark on more of or at least collegiately, and maybe as it trickles down to FAMU, more of a professional model as it relates to the staffing, administration, and how we conduct ourselves. And once again, also just thank the audience. Thanks for everyone for showing up. Coming in, jumping in. I know there was a lot of content going on today from beginning to end in terms of SWAC Media Day, all the announcements and everything else. But we do appreciate everyone coming in the audience, your consistency, your support, and just helping us to lift up Mother FAMU.
EA, stop talking about our co-host like that. We can talk about him, but you can't talk about him, EA. He's a good Christian man. He don't make it rain. I'm not gonna put that on my brother. Anyway, man, we appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Look out for us next week. Look out for the O&G awards coming out. Should be active sometime this week. Make sure you go vote. Thank you for your support. Peace, love, and happiness. Remember, the Rattlers will strike, and strike again. We out.
Thank you.